Far beyond the busy trade routes of the galaxy, there was a small human world called HFY colony. It was not rich. It had no famous cities. It had no large spaceports or powerful fleets. To most of the galaxy, HFY was simply another forgotten human colony at the edge of space. Every morning, the sun rose over wide green fields and quiet hills. Farmers worked on their land. Children laughed as they ran through the streets. Old men sat outside small homes, drinking coffee and watching the sunrise. Women carried baskets filled with fresh vegetables from their gardens. Life moved slowly, peacefully. No one expected war. High above the planet, hidden among dark asteroids, an alien scout ship watched everything. Inside the ship, officers carefully studied the colony. One officer looked at the screen and smiled. Only 3 small defense stations. Another officer checked the population records. Mostly old people. A third officer laughed. No military activity. The report was sent directly to the Galactic Empire. Less than 1 hour later, inside the Emperor's great palace, dozens of generals stood around a glowing star map. HFY colony appeared as a tiny blue light. The Emperor looked at it without emotion. Resources? One general answered immediately. Enough to build new warships for years. Weak defenses? Almost none. Civilian population? Mostly retired humans. The Emperor smiled. Perfect. He pointed toward the colony. Take it. No one questioned the order. Across the Empire, hundreds of giant warships prepared for battle. Engines roared. Weapons charged. Thousands of soldiers entered landing ships. To them, this would be another easy victory. No one believed humans living on a peaceful farming world could offer any resistance. Days later, the people of HFY continued their normal lives. An old man repaired a broken tractor. A woman watered flowers outside her small house. Children chased each other across an open field. Everything looked normal. The sky became dark. One little girl stopped running. She looked upward. What are those? Her father slowly raised his eyes. His smile disappeared. Above the clouds, hundreds, then thousands, of enormous black warships appeared. They covered the sky like a giant metal storm. Every shadow across the colony grew darker. People stopped working. No one spoke. A loud voice suddenly echoed across every city, village, and home. This world now belongs to the Galactic Empire. You will surrender immediately. Any resistance will be destroyed. Silence followed. The Imperial commander waited. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. 1 minute. Still, no answer came. Inside the command ship, young officers laughed. They're too scared to speak. Another officer nodded. They know they can't win. The commander smiled. Begin the invasion. Thousands of landing ships rushed toward the planet. Missiles fell from orbit. Defense towers exploded. Communication satellites disappeared in bright flashes of light. Huge fires spread across the fields. The peaceful colony became a battlefield within minutes. Imperial soldiers landed in the streets, expecting frightened civilians to run away. But something felt wrong. The streets were strangely quiet. People were not screaming. Nobody begged for mercy. Old men stood calmly outside their homes. Women quietly helped children move toward underground shelters. Some of the elderly simply watched the soldiers without fear. One Imperial captain frowned. Why aren't they running? Another soldier whispered, they should be terrified. Instead, one old woman looked directly at the soldiers. She smiled. Not a happy smile. Not an angry smile. A calm smile. As if she already knew what would happen next. The young Imperial soldier suddenly felt cold. Far away, another squad entered a farming village. They found an old man sitting beside a wooden fence. His white hair moved gently in the wind. He slowly looked at the soldiers. One officer shouted, "Stand up." The old man did not move. Another soldier raised his weapon. The old man simply sighed. "You boys came a very long way." The officer became angry. "You will obey the Empire." The old man looked into the officer's eyes. Then he quietly said, No. The officer stepped forward. Before he could speak again, a loud alarm echoed across the entire planet. Not from Imperial ships. From beneath the ground. The very deep underground. A powerful mechanical sound shook the land. The earth itself seemed to wake up. Imperial soldiers looked around in confusion. What is that? Nobody answered. Across every city, across every village, across every mountain, hidden speakers suddenly came to life. An old but powerful voice echoed everywhere. Veteran protocol. The voice paused. Every human on Ashfall stood perfectly still. Even the children stopped moving. The voice spoke again. Activated. At that exact moment, something impossible happened. Fields began opening. Barns slowly moved aside. Large rocks split into two pieces. Forest floors shook violently. Massive steel doors, buried beneath the planet for decades, slowly rose from the ground. Dust filled the air. Ancient blast doors, larger than buildings, unlocked one after another. Inside the Imperial flagship, warning lights flashed across every screen. Officers stared in disbelief. Unknown structures detected. Another officer shouted, "Hundreds of underground facilities." A third officer's face turned pale. "Sir." They were hidden from every scan. The commander could hardly breathe. How? The answer came seconds later. Long-range scanners revealed an enormous underground network stretching beneath almost the entire colony. Thousands of tunnels. Hidden factories. Armories. Military bunkers. Training centers. Command stations. The peaceful farming world was not what it seemed. It had been hiding something for many, many years. Back on the surface, the old farmer slowly stood up. His hands no longer shook. His eyes looked sharp. Dangerously calm. He looked toward the giant bunker doors opening behind him. Then he quietly smiled. "Looks like retirement." He brushed the dust from his old jacket. "Is finally over." As thousands of hidden bunker doors continued opening across Ashfall Colony, the Imperial commanders realized they had made a terrible mistake. They had not invaded a helpless human farming world. They had awakened something the galaxy had forgotten. And deep beneath the silent colony, thousands of Earth's greatest veterans were preparing for war. The ground continued to shake. Across Ashfall Colony, enormous steel doors rose from beneath farms, forests, and empty hills. Thick clouds of dust filled the air while ancient machines, silent for more than 40 years, slowly came back to life. Imperial soldiers froze where they stood. One young lieutenant stared at the opening bunker in front of him. What is this place?" No one answered. Inside the massive underground doorway, darkness covered everything. Only a few dim white lights slowly turned on, one after another, disappearing deep into the earth. The entrance looked less like a bunker and more like the mouth of a giant sleeping beast. The Imperial commander refused to believe anything was wrong. "They're only hiding," he said confidently. "Send the 1st Assault Battalion underground." Hundreds of elite soldiers immediately moved toward the entrance. Heavy armored vehicles rolled behind them. Combat drones flew overhead. Their weapons were ready. Inside the bunker, the soldiers expected frightened civilians. Instead, they found silence. The hallway stretched for miles beneath the colony. Its metal walls were spotless. Every light worked perfectly. The air felt fresh. Nothing looked abandoned. One soldier whispered, "This place has been maintained." Another looked around nervously. By who? The only sound was the echo of their boots. Step, step, step. Far ahead, the hallway split into several tunnels. The commander gave orders. "Divide into teams." The soldiers separated. Some moved left. Others continued straight ahead. The commander entered the largest tunnel. He noticed something strange. Pictures covered the walls. Not paintings. Photographs. Thousands of them. Old photographs of human soldiers standing beside damaged tanks. Others showed smiling young men and women wearing military uniforms. Some pictures showed battles on strange alien worlds. Others showed burning cities and destroyed starships. Every photo carried the same small symbol. A silver eagle. One soldier stopped. "Sir." He pointed toward a bronze plaque beneath one picture. "First Human Defense Fleet. Victory at Orion Pass." Another plaque. "Earth Marine Corps. Siege of Titan Ridge." Another. "Special Recon Unit. Classified Mission." The commander frowned. "This isn't a civilian shelter." Before anyone could speak, a calm voice echoed through hidden speakers. "Welcome." Every Imperial weapon instantly aimed toward the ceiling. The voice continued. "You should have stayed in orbit." The commander shouted, "Show yourself." Silence. Then another voice answered, "We will." Far deeper inside the bunker, a huge circular room slowly lit up. Rows of old lockers stood against the walls. Inside each locker hung polished combat armor. Every suit carried battle marks, scars from wars long forgotten. An elderly man slowly entered the room. His white hair rested neatly on his shoulders. His hands showed signs of age, but his eyes remained sharp. Without speaking, he opened one locker. Inside waited dark gray combat armor. He gently touched the chest plate. His fingers stopped over dozens of deep scratches. Each scratch told a story. Behind him, more elderly men and women entered quietly. Nobody rushed. Nobody panicked. One woman smiled. "I thought I'd never wear this again." Another laughed softly. "It still fits." An old mechanic carefully lifted a futuristic rifle from the wall. "I clean this every month." His friend smiled. "I knew you never trusted retirement." Across the room, another veteran slowly placed an old military badge onto his armor. The room filled with quiet sounds. Armor locking into place. Weapons charging. Boots touching steel floors. No speeches. No excitement. Only calm preparation. One old soldier looked toward a digital clock. "It took them 42 years. His friend nodded. "I expected them sooner." Meanwhile, the Imperial assault teams continued exploring. Suddenly, every light inside the hallway turned red. A warning alarm echoed across the underground complex. Not for the humans. For the invaders. One officer checked his scanner. Movement. Where? Everywhere. Red dots suddenly appeared across every screen. Dozens. Hundreds. Then thousands. The commander looked confused. "Impossible. They weren't here a second ago." The scanner operator swallowed nervously. "They've surrounded us." The commander quickly shouted, "Prepare for contact." Every soldier raised their rifle. The hallway became silent once again. 5 seconds passed. Nothing happened. 10 seconds. Still nothing. One nervous soldier whispered, "I don't like this." The lights went out. Complete darkness. Someone fired a weapon. Bright flashes filled the hallway. Soldiers turned in every direction. "Who's there?" No answer. The lights returned. One Imperial soldier was gone. Only his rifle remained on the floor. The others stared in horror. Where did he go? Nobody knew. Another soldier disappeared. No scream. No gunfire. Simply gone. Fear spread quickly. The commander shouted, "Stay together." Before they could regroup, a calm voice echoed behind them. "You are standing inside our home." The soldiers spun around. At the far end of the hallway stood a single old man. His gray combat armor looked ancient. Its surface carried countless battle scars. His rifle rested calmly across his shoulder. The commander laughed. "One old man?" The veteran smiled. "You still don't understand." The commander aimed his weapon. "Surrender." The old man slowly shook his head. "No." Then he pressed a small button on his wrist. Heavy blast doors slammed shut behind the Imperial soldiers. Boom, boom, boom. Every escape route closed. Emergency lights flashed. The commander realized the truth. They were trapped. The veteran looked at the frightened soldiers. His voice remained calm. "For 40 years, we built farms. We raised children. We planted forests. We buried our friends." He paused. "But every morning, we also trained." The commander suddenly noticed movement behind the old soldier. Not one person. Not 10. Hundreds. Elderly men. Elderly women. Former medics. Former engineers. Former pilots. Former Marines. All wearing old military armor. All standing perfectly still. No one looked angry. No one shouted. Their discipline was terrifying. The old veteran spoke one final sentence. "You came here expecting civilians." He slowly lifted his rifle. "You found Earth's veterans." At that exact moment, throughout Ashfall Colony, thousands of hidden bunkers opened completely. And across the underground command network, one message reached every veteran on the planet. All units confirmed. Defend the colony. Welcome back to duty. The war had truly begun. The first battle inside Ashfall Colony lasted less than 10 minutes. The Imperial assault team disappeared. No distress call reached orbit. No emergency beacon activated. No soldier returned. Inside the Imperial flagship, the operations room became silent. Every officer stared at the tactical display. The blue dots marked Imperial soldiers. One by one, they vanished. The final blue dot blinked twice. Then it was gone. The room fell completely quiet. Grand Commander Varek slowly folded his hands behind his back. Report. A nervous communications officer swallowed. "We've lost contact with the entire 1st Assault Battalion." "Cause?" "We don't know, sir." "Enemy numbers?" "Unknown." The commander frowned. "Impossible." 500 elite Imperial soldiers could not simply disappear. He looked toward the colony below. From orbit, Ashfall still looked peaceful. Smoke rose from damaged farms. Small fires burned across the fields. But there were no large battles. No explosions. No visible army. Only silence. That silence made everyone uncomfortable. Finally, Commander Varek gave another order. Launch reconnaissance drones. Hundreds of advanced drones left the flagship. Within minutes, they flew across every city, mountain, and forest. Their cameras searched every corner. Nothing. No human army. No tanks. No aircraft. Only old houses. Empty roads. Quiet farms. One young officer smiled. "They're hiding." Commander Varek did not smile. No. He looked carefully at one screen. "They're watching." Deep beneath Ashfall Colony, the veterans gathered inside an underground command center. The room looked old but powerful. Large holographic maps floated above metal tables. Every hallway buzzed with activity. Men and women with gray hair calmly walked between control stations. Nobody shouted. Nobody panicked. Everything moved with quiet discipline. Standing in the center was Colonel Nathan Briggs. Nearly 72 years old. His back remained straight. His voice remained calm. He studied the holographic map. Red lights showed Imperial landing zones. Blue lights marked veteran positions. A younger officer asked, "Colonel, should we launch a full attack?" Nathan slowly shook his head. "No." The room became quiet. "They have more ships. They have more soldiers. They have more weapons." He looked toward every veteran. "So we will use something they don't have." One veteran smiled. "Experience." Nathan nodded once. "They've trained for battles. We've survived wars." Far above, the Empire landed another 5,000 soldiers. This time they arrived with armored walkers, combat drones, and heavy artillery. Entire valleys filled with Imperial forces. Commander Varek smiled. This colony cannot hide forever. The invasion moved forward. But something strange happened. Every road looked empty. Every town was abandoned. Every building stood open. No civilians. No defenders. Only silence. One Imperial captain whispered, "This feels wrong." Suddenly, a small radio signal appeared. Very weak. The captain smiled. "I found survivors." He followed the signal into an old farmhouse. The front door stood open. Inside, fresh bread rested on a wooden table. Coffee was still warm. Someone had been there only minutes earlier. The captain slowly walked deeper inside. Nothing. He opened another room. Empty. He checked the basement. Empty. A quiet click echoed beneath his boot. His eyes grew wide. Oh! The floor exploded. The blast destroyed the farmhouse. Outside, nearby soldiers rushed toward the smoke. Before they reached it, sniper fire echoed from distant hills. One shot. One soldier fell. Second shot. Another officer collapsed. Third shot. A drone exploded in midair. The Imperial soldiers fired wildly into the hills. Nothing moved. The snipers had already disappeared. Miles away, 3 elderly veterans quietly packed their rifles. One smiled. Still accurate. Another laughed softly. I missed this. The oldest among them shook his head. No. He looked across the valley. I never missed war. The others became silent. Without another word, they disappeared into the forest. Across Ashfall, the same pattern repeated. Imperial supply trucks vanished. Fuel depots exploded. Communication towers stopped working. Bridges collapsed moments before heavy vehicles crossed them. Every trap had been prepared years ago. Every road held hidden surprises. Every forest contained secret tunnels. The veterans never stayed in one place. They attacked, then vanished. Imperial soldiers began fearing every shadow, every empty building, every quiet road. Sleep became impossible. Inside the Imperial Command Center, reports flooded every screen. Convoy 7 destroyed. Drone squadron missing. Fuel station lost. Forward base under attack. Commander Varek slammed his fist onto the table. Where are they? Nobody answered. One intelligence officer quietly spoke. They only attack where we're weak. Another added, they know exactly where every patrol will go. Commander Varek stared at the battlefield map. They know our strategy. An older advisor slowly said, no. They understand soldiers. That night, heavy rain covered Ashfall Colony. Imperial troops finally believed the veterans would stop fighting. Instead, the rain became their enemy. Hidden motion sensors activated. Flood tunnels opened. Mud trapped heavy vehicles. Power generators short-circuited. Entire camps lost electricity. Darkness covered the battlefield. Small lights appeared in the distance. Imperial soldiers aimed their weapons. The lights slowly moved closer. One officer whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. The lights stopped. The soldiers fired. Laser blasts filled the darkness. When the smoke cleared, they realized they had been shooting old farming robots carrying lanterns. The officer looked confused. It was a distraction. Before anyone reacted, veterans attacked from 3 different directions. Short bursts of rifle fire echoed through the rain. Explosions shook the camp. Within 4 minutes, the attackers disappeared again. The Imperial camp burned behind them. As dawn arrived, Commander Varek finally received battlefield footage from a damaged drone. He watched carefully. The video showed an elderly woman calmly walking through smoke. She carried a heavy rifle with perfect balance. Without rushing, she disabled 3 combat drones. She disappeared into a tunnel. Next came an old mechanic. He repaired a captured Imperial vehicle in less than 2 minutes. Then he drove it directly into an enemy weapons depot. Another explosion. Another victory. The final recording appeared. An old man stood alone in the middle of a road. Imperial tanks surrounded him. He slowly raised one hand. The tanks stopped. Seconds later, hidden missiles erupted from nearby hills. Every tank exploded together. The old man quietly walked away without looking back. The video ended. The command room became silent. One officer whispered, "They're not soldiers." Commander Varek finished the sentence. "They're hunters." For the first time since the invasion began, fear entered his voice. Meanwhile, deep inside the underground command center, Colonel Nathan looked at the newest battlefield report. A small smile appeared on his face. "The Empire is finally learning." A young veteran asked, "Learning what, sir?" Nathan looked toward the map covered with burning Imperial positions. "The difference," he paused, "between fighting an army and fighting people who have spent an entire lifetime surviving wars. Far above Ashfall, Commander Varek made the decision that would change the entire galaxy. He opened a secure communication channel to the Imperial capital. His message contained only 7 words. Send the Emperor's elite fleet. Immediately. The veterans had won the first battles. Now, the Empire was sending its deadliest warriors. The emergency message reached the Imperial capital within minutes. Commander Varek had never asked for help before. Not once. For 23 years, he had conquered world after world without failure. Now, his message contained only 7 words. Send the Emperor's elite fleet. Immediately. Inside the Imperial Palace, silence filled the throne room. The Emperor slowly stood from his black throne. His glowing eyes remained fixed on the battlefield projection above the floor. Ashfall Colony looked so small. Just another human settlement. Yet around it floated the burning remains of Imperial warships. Destroyed transports drifted through space. Entire landing zones had vanished. Supply routes were gone. Thousands of trained soldiers had disappeared. The Emperor slowly turned toward his advisors. Who lives on that colony? An old intelligence minister lowered his head. I don't know anymore. The Emperor narrowed his eyes. You invaded a world. Without knowing who lived there? No one answered. The room became colder. Finally, the Emperor spoke again. Prepare the first royal fleet. Every advisor looked up in surprise. The first royal fleet had not entered battle for over 50 years. It existed for only one reason: to end wars, not fight them. Across the galaxy, enormous shipyards came alive. Massive hangar doors opened. Gigantic battleships slowly left their docks. Each vessel was twice the size of Commander Varek's flagship. Thousands of fighter craft launched into formation. Heavy carriers followed. Then came the Emperor's personal flagship, the Iron Crown. Its shadow alone covered entire cities. People across the Empire believed the arrival of the Iron Crown meant victory was already certain. No enemy had ever survived its attack. Back on Ashfall Colony, life continued in a strange way. Some veterans repaired damaged homes. Others harvested crops before they spoiled. Children helped carry food into underground shelters. The colony still looked peaceful. Only the distant smoke reminded everyone that war had arrived. Near one damaged farmhouse, 12-year-old Emma watched an elderly man repairing a fence. She looked confused. Grandpa Mason? The old man smiled. Yes. Why are you fixing a fence during a war? He quietly placed another wooden board into position. Because cows don't understand war. Emma blinked. They still need food. She looked toward the distant explosions. But aren't you scared? Mason gently smiled. I've been scared before. He hammered another nail. I learned long ago. Fear doesn't stop tomorrow from coming. Emma watched him quietly. Only then did she notice something unusual. The old man's work gloves could not hide the deep scars covering his hands. Scars from another life. Another war. Deep underground, Colonel Nathan Briggs entered a room that almost no one had seen for decades. A giant steel vault slowly opened. Inside stood dozens of old battle flags. Each carried the name of a different human unit. Some flags were burned. Others had bullet holes. Every one represented soldiers who never returned home. Nathan stopped before one faded banner. Earth Veteran Expeditionary Corps. He gently touched the cloth. His voice barely rose above a whisper. We kept our promise. Another veteran entered behind him. Captain Elena Ross. Her white hair rested beneath an old officer's cap. She looked at Nathan. Scouts just reported something. Nathan turned. The Royal Fleet? She nodded. They're coming. Nathan remained silent for several seconds. Finally he smiled. So, the Emperor finally noticed us. High above Ashfall, long-range sensors suddenly detected hundreds of hyperspace signatures. One by one, massive warships appeared. Then hundreds more. The stars themselves seemed to disappear behind endless lines of Imperial ships. Commander Varek smiled for the first time since the invasion began. They're here. The communication screen activated. A new face appeared. Grand Marshal Kaler, commander of the Emperor's royal fleet. Unlike Varek, Kaler did not look angry. He looked curious. So, he studied the battlefield reports. These old humans embarrassed you. Varek remained silent. Kaler continued reading. Interesting. He looked directly into the camera. Do not interfere anymore. I'll finish this. Within minutes, the royal fleet surrounded the planet. Unlike the earlier invasion, they did not attack immediately. Instead, hundreds of scanning satellites entered orbit. Advanced sensors swept across every mountain, every river, every underground tunnel, every bunker. Kayla wanted information first. Hours passed. Finally, an officer approached him. Our scans are complete. What did we find? The officer looked confused. Nothing. Kayla frowned. What do you mean, nothing? The bunkers disappeared. Commander Varek stepped forward. That's impossible. The officer nervously checked the report again. Our earlier maps no longer match. The underground network has changed. Every tunnel, every entrance, every command center had somehow moved. Deep below Ashfall, a young technician smiled proudly. They're scanning empty tunnels. Another veteran laughed. They're chasing ghosts. Nathan folded his arms. Good. For 40 years, the veterans had rebuilt the colony. Not only above ground. Entire underground cities had been redesigned. Moving walls, hidden rail systems, false command rooms, fake weapon depots, hundreds of kilometers of secret tunnels. Every invasion plan created by the Empire had already failed. Without firing a single shot, Marshal Kaler refused to accept defeat. If we cannot find them, we force them to come out. He raised one hand. Orbital cannons slowly rotated toward the surface. Every officer inside the bridge became quiet. Commander Varek looked surprised. You're going to destroy the colony? Kaler answered without emotion. If necessary. But civilians create pressure. The veterans will reveal themselves. Slowly, the first orbital cannon charged. Its bright blue energy illuminated nearby ships. Down below, emergency alarms echoed across Ashfall. Colonel Nathan looked toward the ceiling. They've decided. Captain Elena asked quietly, What now? Nathan answered immediately. Protect the people. Not the bunkers. Not the weapons. The people. Within minutes, veterans across the colony began moving. Children entered underground shelters. Medical teams prepared hospitals. Engineers activated ancient defense systems hidden beneath rivers and mountains. Nobody shouted. Nobody panicked. Every person already knew their role. They had practiced this day for decades. High above, Marshal Kaler slowly lowered his hand. Fire. The first orbital beam rushed toward Ashfall like a second sun. It crossed the sky in seconds. Everyone on the surface looked up. Children covered their eyes. Farmers stopped working. Veterans stood perfectly still. The beam struck, but not the colony. A brilliant wall of blue light suddenly appeared around the planet. The orbital blast crashed into the invisible shield. The explosion shook space itself. Imperial bridges trembled. Warning sirens screamed across the fleet. Officers stared at their screens in complete disbelief. One technician shouted, Impossible! Planetary defense shield activated. Commander Varek whispered, They had a shield. Marshal Kaler slowly stood from his command chair. His calm expression disappeared for the first time. Our intelligence said this colony had no defenses. The technician looked terrified. It didn't. Until now. Far below, Colonel Nathan watched the glowing shield cover the skies above Ashfall. A faint smile crossed his face. They've finally seen our first line of defense. Then another officer rushed into the command center. His face had turned pale. Colonel. Nathan looked up. What is it? The officer took a deep breath. Our deep space sensors have detected something unexpected. Nathan frowned. What? The officer looked at the massive star map. Thousands of new blue signals had just appeared beyond the edge of the system. Ships. Human ships. Not military patrols. Not trade vessels. An entire fleet was coming. And they were only hours away. The blue signals multiplied every second. One ship became 10. 10 became 100. Soon, thousands of blue lights filled the edge of the star system. Inside the Imperial flagship, every alarm began flashing at once. Marshal Kaler stared at the tactical display. His voice became unusually quiet. Identify those ships. The sensor officer worked as fast as he could. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, the results appeared. The officer looked confused. They're human. Commander Varek stepped closer. Earth's Navy? The officer shook his head. No, sir. They're from everywhere. The command bridge fell silent. What do you mean? The officer enlarged the display. One by one, the ship names appeared. Cargo vessels. Mining ships. Medical ships. Rescue ships. Old patrol cruisers. Civilian transports. Research vessels. Even small farming freighters. Ships from hundreds of different human worlds were arriving together. Very few were true warships. Yet they kept coming. The sensor officer whispered, "It's not a military fleet." Commander Varek frowned. Then what is it? No one had an answer. Far beyond Ashfall, Captain Sarah Morgan stood on the bridge of an old transport ship called Hope's Journey. Years ago, it had carried farming equipment across peaceful colonies. Today, its cargo bays held food, medical supplies, replacement power cells, and emergency shelters. Sarah looked toward the stars ahead. Ashfall Colony. She had never lived there. She had never even visited. Yet she came without hesitation. A young crew member asked, "Captain, why is everyone coming?" Sarah smiled softly. "Because the people on Ashfall once protected all of us." The young man looked confused. "They're only veterans." Sarah slowly shook her head. "No. They're the reason our generation grew up without another galactic war." Across human space, the same conversation happened everywhere. Factories stopped production. Instead of building machines, they built medical supplies. Teachers collected donations. Children packed food boxes. Mechanics repaired old spacecraft. Retired pilots volunteered once again. No government forced anyone. Nobody received orders. Humanity simply decided together. Ashfall would not stand alone. Back inside the underground command center, Colonel Nathan Briggs received the newest sensor report. He quietly read every line. Captain Elena smiled. "They came." Nathan nodded once. "They always would." She looked at him. "You knew." Nathan looked toward the old battle flags hanging above the command room. "We fought for them. It was never about medals. It was never about glory. We protected people." He smiled gently. "People remember." Hours later, the first human ships entered communication range. Marshal Kaler immediately opened every military frequency. His image appeared across the approaching fleet. "This system belongs to the Galactic Empire. Turn back immediately." Silence answered. One transport ship moved forward. Its captain appeared on screen. An elderly woman wearing simple work clothes. Not a military uniform. Kaler frowned. "You are violating Imperial authority." The woman smiled politely. "We're bringing medicine. You will leave." "No. You understand this means war?" She nodded calmly. "If helping our veterans starts a war, then you started it." The transmission ended. More ships continued arriving. None turned back. Within 6 hours, the empty space around Ashfall transformed completely. Human ships filled every safe orbit. Medical stations unfolded. Repair docks activated. Emergency hospitals opened inside giant cargo vessels. Thousands of volunteers immediately began helping wounded civilians. Children evacuated from dangerous areas. Food supplies landed across damaged towns. Engineers repaired broken water systems. Not a single weapon fired. The Empire watched in complete confusion. Commander Varric spoke quietly. "They're ignoring us." Marshal Kaler narrowed his eyes. "No. They're showing us something." On the surface, little Emma watched enormous cargo ships descend toward the colony. People stepped out carrying blankets, medicine, seats, construction tools. One young woman hugged an elderly veteran without saying a word. Another group began rebuilding a destroyed school. Nearby, volunteers repaired homes damaged during the first bombardment. Emma smiled. "Grandpa Mason, they came." The old veteran looked around. Thousands of strangers worked beside one another. Some cried after recognizing old veterans whose names they had only read about in history books. Others quietly shook their hands. One teenage soldier stood before Colonel Nathan. His voice trembled. "My grandfather served under you." Nathan smiled. "He was a good man." The young soldier straightened proudly. "I'm here because of him." Nathan placed one hand on the young man's shoulder. "No. You're here because you chose to be." Meanwhile, Marshal Kaler studied new intelligence reports. Something strange caught his attention. Every arriving civilian ship carried the same small symbol. A silver eagle. Exactly the same emblem found inside Ashfall's underground bunkers. He looked toward Commander Varric. "What is that symbol?" Varric answered quietly. "Our intelligence believes it belonged to an old Earth military organization." Kaler frowned. "Belonged?" An intelligence officer interrupted. "No, Marshal. It still does." He placed an ancient document onto the screen. The Silver Eagle is awarded only to soldiers who completed impossible campaigns. The officer swallowed. It is considered humanity's highest military honor. Kaler looked back toward Ashfall. His expression slowly changed. "So this colony is filled with those soldiers?" The officer nodded. "Yes. And judging by the civilian response, every human world knows exactly who they are." Far below, Nathan walked through the rebuilt streets. Children laughed again. Fresh bread baked inside small kitchens. Farmers returned to their fields despite enemy ships hanging overhead. The colony refused to stop living. Captain Elena joined him. "Do you think they'll attack again?" Nathan looked toward the sky. "They have no choice. The Emperor cannot leave. He cannot win. But he also cannot retreat." At that very moment, inside the Imperial flagship, a frightened communications officer rushed onto the bridge. "Marshal!" Kaler turned. "What now?" "We intercepted internal Imperial communications." "So?" The officer hesitated. "News of our losses has spread across the Empire. Entire sectors are questioning the invasion." Another officer added, "Several allied worlds have delayed sending reinforcements." Commander Varric stared in disbelief. "They're losing confidence." Kaler remained silent. For the first time, he realized this battle was no longer about one colony. If the Empire failed here, every conquered world would see weakness. Every enemy would become bold. Every ally would begin doubting Imperial power. Ashfall had become something far more dangerous than a battlefield. It had become a symbol. Kaler slowly walked toward the bridge window. Thousands of human ships surrounded the peaceful colony below. None had come seeking conquest. They had come to protect the people who once protected them. The Marshal whispered to himself, "This isn't an army. It's an entire civilization standing together." Before anyone could speak again, a new hyperspace alert echoed across every Imperial ship. Another fleet had arrived. Unlike the civilian convoy, these ships carried heavy armor, long-range cannons, advanced fighter wings. At their front flew the blue and white flag of Earth's home fleet. The real military had finally entered the system. And this time, humanity had come ready for war. The arrival of Earth's home fleet changed everything. Hundreds of powerful warships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. Unlike the civilian ships already protecting Ashfall, these vessels carried heavy rail cannons, advanced shield systems, and thousands of trained soldiers. The blue and white flag of Earth flew proudly from every flagship. Yet something surprised the Empire. The home fleet did not charge forward. It did not fire its weapons. It simply formed a defensive wall around Ashfall Colony. Marshal Kaler watched from the bridge of the Iron Crown. "They're waiting." Commander Varek looked confused. "Why don't they attack?" Kaler answered quietly. "Because they don't want this war. They want us to make the next mistake." Inside Earth's flagship Guardian, Admiral Sophia Hayes stood before a large holographic display. Her officers waited silently. One young commander finally asked, "Should we begin our attack?" Sophia slowly shook her head. "No. Our mission is simple. Protect Ashfall. Nothing more." Another officer frowned. "But we can destroy the Imperial fleet." Sophia looked directly at him. And then, the officer remained silent. She continued, "Victory is easy. Peace is difficult. We're here to end this war, not start another one." Every officer nodded. Down on Ashfall Colony, the veterans gathered in the old underground command center one final time. Colonel Nathan Briggs stood before the familiar battle map. Almost every red enemy marker had stopped moving. The Empire was no longer advancing. The veterans had done the impossible. They had forced the greatest military power in the galaxy to hesitate. Captain Elena smiled. "We survived." Nathan looked around the room. Some veterans wore bandages. Others leaned on walking sticks. Many chairs remained empty. Friends who had laughed together only days before would never return. Nathan quietly removed his combat gloves. "We survived. But survival always has a price." The room became silent. Far above the planet, the Imperial High Council contacted Marshal Kaler. A serious voice echoed across the bridge. "Marshal, give your report." Kaler spoke honestly. "We underestimated the colony. We underestimated humanity. We can continue fighting, but the cost will be enormous." The council members exchanged worried looks. One finally asked, "Can we still win?" Kaler answered after a long pause. "Perhaps. But even if we win, the Empire will never recover." Silence filled the meeting. No one wanted to admit the truth. Ashfall had already become a legend. Destroying it would only create more enemies. Hours later, every ship around the planet received the same message. The Empire requested negotiations. Commander Varek stared in disbelief. "They're asking for peace?" Kaler nodded. "They finally understand." A neutral station was chosen between both fleets. No weapons. No soldiers. Only leaders. Colonel Nathan Briggs arrived wearing simple civilian clothes. Not armor. Not medals. Just an old gray jacket. Admiral Sophia Hayes walked beside him. Across the room stood Marshal Kaler. For several seconds, no one spoke. Finally, Kaler broke the silence. "I expected to meet a general." Nathan smiled softly. "You did." "I simply stopped wearing the uniform." Kaler slowly nodded. "I owe you an apology." Nathan looked into his eyes. "No. You owe one to every family whose home your fleet destroyed." The room became quiet again. Kaler took a deep breath. "What are your demands?" Nathan did not hesitate. "First, the Empire will rebuild every home damaged on Ashfall." Kaler nodded. "Agreed." "Second, every captured civilian will be returned immediately." "Agreed." "Third, the Empire will never attack another peaceful colony without cause." Kaler remained silent for several moments. Finally, "I accept." One council member objected. "Marshal." Kaler raised one hand. "No." He looked toward Nathan. "We came seeking victory. We found wisdom." The peace agreement was signed. News spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. For the first time in generations, the Empire had stepped back instead of conquering another world. Across hundreds of planets, people celebrated. Not because an empire had been defeated, but because a terrible war had ended before millions more died. Months passed. Ashfall slowly returned to normal. New homes replaced destroyed buildings. Fresh crops covered the fields once again. Children returned to school. The sounds of laughter replaced the sounds of explosions. Volunteers from every human world continued helping rebuild the colony. Even several former Imperial engineers arrived to assist. Nathan welcomed them without anger. The future, he said, is built by people willing to repair yesterday's mistakes. One warm afternoon, little Emma walked beside Grandpa Mason through the rebuilt town. Everything looked peaceful again. Flowers grew where craters once scarred the earth. She looked at the old veteran. "Grandpa, were you really one of Earth's greatest soldiers?" Mason chuckled. "I don't know about greatest, but I was lucky enough to come home." Emma thought for a moment. Will there be another war? The old man looked toward the clear blue sky. "I hope not." She frowned. "But if someone attacks again?" He smiled gently. "Then another generation will stand up. Just like we did." Nearby, Colonel Nathan quietly placed his old combat helmet inside the colony museum. The helmet was scratched, burned, covered with memories. A young museum worker asked, "Should we clean it?" Nathan shook his head. "No. Leave every mark. They remind people that peace always has a cost." He turned and walked toward the exit. He never looked back. Years later, visitors from every corner of the galaxy traveled to Ashfall Colony. Not to see battlefields. Not to see weapons. They came to see ordinary people who had protected extraordinary ideals. At the center of the colony stood a simple stone memorial. No giant statue. No golden throne. Only a single message carved into the stone. Never mistake peace for weakness. Those who seek a quiet life are often the ones who know the true cost of war. Children stopped to read those words. Veterans quietly smiled. And somewhere beyond the stars, even former Imperial officers told new recruits the story of Ashfall. Not as a tale of defeat, but as a lesson. Because every soldier in the galaxy eventually learned one truth. The Empire's greatest mistake was never attacking a human colony. Its greatest mistake was believing that old warriors had forgotten how to fight.